Good afternoon. Sorry, we're a couple of minutes behind schedule this afternoon. Let the record reflect that this is the school board workshop for February the 25th, 2025. And with our sole topic being the budget for this workshop. Let the minutes record that only 4 board members are present. Mrs. Wade, District 3, is absent this evening. But Dr. Tigan and our clerk are present. Can I get a motion to approve our agenda?
Madam Chair, I'll make the motion to approve our agenda.
Do I get a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. So the agenda is approved. All right, so here we go. The proposed budget. Dr. Tigan?
Yes, Madam Chairwoman. Mrs. Holloway is here today. She is going to start, she'll help walk through a list of what our potential adjustments are, given the feedback we have been provided by the county to date, as far as to what they are currently seeing as the potential transfer to schools and knowing what our constraints are. And so you have a paper that actually, one sheet of paper that summarizes what our changes to the budget after the February 18th presentation, which was the one that was to be on the 11th.
Right, yeah,
It wasn't changed. It was still dated the 11th because that's when it was prepared for, but we had snow. And so, Mrs. Holloway, I'll let you walk through the changes.
Okay, so we're just going to look at the one-sheeter. So like Dr. Tigan said, as we go through the budget process, sometimes we find things that are too high, things that are too low, things that might be missing, whatever the case may be. So I started keeping a list of things I knew we were going to need to make adjustments on at the end. So expenditures that need to be added or revised are at the top part. So we have a little bit sitting in an unallocated number of $3,885. We need to decrease code RVA by $7,800, but we need to increase Maggie Walker by $8,900. There is some software that we use for student transcripts that is not really in anybody's budget. We've kind of just realized that as we've changed personnel and things are changing, so that needs to be added. The transportation software, Mr. Albert has asked for the software. I believe he talked to you all about the tablets for the substitute drivers. This is the ongoing cost annually to support that. We would make the purchase of the tablets this year with funds that we have, and this would be an ongoing expense after that, the $8,200. And then you all had asked to add an additional psychologist intern. So with the FICA, that's $19,700. We had included 1.8 additional counselors, and that was based on what we thought was going to come through legislature, but it did not pass, so we can remove those for $165. So that right there, those changes save us $124,000. Sorry. Then we've had a few revisions to revenue. JROTC is going up slightly. That's the little bit of federal money that sits in the operating fund. Driver's ed rates, the state has told us based on our reports each year that we can raise that tuition payment a little bit more. I guess it's not a tuition payment, but the payment to take driver's ed slightly by $2,500. And then the two big revenues that we spoke about already through the House and Senate for the basic aid, $603,000, and the special ed add-on for $139,000. So all of those things give us $873,000 toward our shortage of $2.5 million. So when you take that $873 from the $2.5 million, we're still short $1,685,000. Then all of the requests, if we cut all the requests that were put out there, other than the girls' soccer team, the reading specialist, which is required, and the cybersecurity money, which we know we desperately need, everything else comes to $1.2 million that we could cut. We're still short $472,000. So we need as a school system to make decisions about how we would get to that 472.
Madam Chair,
Ms. Hurd?
so exactly when the Board of Supervisors is have put in their budget, have we had any indications when they may come back with a revision to that?
I would imagine after we meet with them next Thursday. So I would think that if they were going to make a revision, they would talk about it then or talk about it shortly after and make their decision. But I have no guess.
Okay, they haven't given any indication. Have you heard anything from?
No, I don't think anything official has come out from the
Right.
county. I do anticipate conversations at the joint Board of Supervisors school
Right.
board meeting next week. And like Mrs. Holloway, I would expect some feedback as to what we can anticipate. Are they maintaining the current tax rate? If they're willing to consider additional funding, since there was so much cut 2 years ago, and we're seeing the impact of not having the funding as, I know for schools, the majority of our budget is still our personnel. And so when you have a 3% increase that's coming from the state, we also know more than 50% of that is coming from our community between the local composite index and the positions that are not currently covered in the SOQ, the standards of quality. So, I know there's been conversations about potentially increasing the tax rate. There are new information, that I think that there's information that the board when they made the decision to cut the tax rate, were not aware of. As I know, this is just not a budget issue. They're looking at it as a budget and a CIP issue. And, when that rate was determined to be cut, I don't think that anyone really, especially on the Board of Supervisors, understood the impact of our facilities study and what that would mean.
Yeah, because I don't think we had made, when they cut that rate, we had not made it public, the recent Dewberry facilities study. I think we were just getting it like in the fall of '23.
That's correct.
And so they were not aware of it so in their defense, this is a big thing that's been put in their lap. I totally understand that this is quite a bit more than they ever anticipated to see from the schools. So, yeah.
Ms. Holloway, can you speak to the contract changes to
Yes, ma'am.
192?
That was that list of the instructional specialists getting an increase to bring them up to what they should have gotten in the salary study, the school administrators, the 2 custodial technicians that we have, a adaptive PE special ed teacher. Those are the contract changes that were listed on another list that I had. I just combined them to save time on
That's
this.
fine, that's
Yes,
fine.
yes,
I just
ma'am.
wanted you to just review that. And the reading specialist, though, is not an option for us, is it? Aren't we going to have to do that?
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
So,
That's why that's listed at the top.
It's been taken out of our equation altogether. We put
Right.
it in the budget, and I'm not removing it because it has to stay there.
okay,
Because it says program improvements less those 3 things.
right, but the reading specialist is something we have got to add.
Yes, ma'am.
ma'am.
It's required
And the
by standards of quality.
cybersecurity is a must-have as
Yes, ma'am.
well.
Yes.
We just learned about Appomattox County and the situation they went through about cybersecurity. So that's just not something we can play around with.
And I think that a lot of people, through the recent incident with Power School, not only across the nation, but outside the U.S. as well, has shown the impact of cybersecurity and the possibilities. And we need to make sure that we're as tight on our security as we can be, and that's going to require additional funding.
Madam Chair?
Yes, yes, Ms. Hurd.
On the cybersecurity, I was talking to some people at the county. Is there any way, and probably our tech person may need to answer this, that we could share cybersecurity with them? Is there some way that they would need the same level of cybersecurity? I mean, is that okay? Can I ask?
You can ask, I'm not sure with our network and theirs, whether that's a possibility. Maybe, Mr. Mecca knows. I don't know what
I
conversations
was asked this
he's-
question by someone in the county and I couldn't answer because obviously I'm not.
Oh, well, I spoke with John Woods just about the overall architecture, and the problem is you get into licensing.
Oh,
So
okay.
whenever these platforms that you buy to implement for cybersecurity, they're licensed to unique. Now, down the road, if there's a cooperative purchasing agreement between with the county and the school board that could help reduce the cost, that would probably be one of the things that we could look at.
Okay.
So let me follow with a follow-up question. So are they compatible, the programs that the county uses and the one that we're looking to use? Or they, so that further down the road, if something like that could be negotiated?
I think one of the things that's probably going to shed some light on this is the Phase 2 funding from VITA. VITA has actually, they got a significant amount of Homeland Defense money. And they did studies last year, and this year they've actually just put out some grants. And in that granting program, there's allocations where the state gets a special purchase price from, there's a ton of cybersecurity providers out there. And if the county and we use some of that money, then we'd probably be on the same platforms, yes. I think that would be the best way for us to approach that.
Is that a doable conversation to have, Dr. Tigan? Then.
It absolutely can be a conversation with the county. We've worked to try to collaborate on other projects they haven't come to fruition, but, absolutely it's worth, chatting with them. And I don't know if they're applying for a grant. I know we are applying for a grant.
Our application's ready. I'll talk to John, see what it is. I know that they're implementing CrowdStrike
Yeah, I know
for
about that.
their endpoint protection. The state has an agreement with CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike is the forensic. They're a cybersecurity provider, but they also do forensics, and they are the company that PowerSchool hired to figure out what happened to them. They're a reputable company, but I had them give us a quote, and it's untouchable for us. There are other solutions I think that are going to do what we need at a better price point if it's our budget.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Mecca?
No.
On that?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Okay.
Could I make one more comment?
Yes, ma'am.
So I know we have this maintenance of understanding or MOU or whatever it is that we're working on with the county for this building. Any revenue that would generate is not in my numbers. So we would have to add that revenue, which would help us, but I also would need to know what other expenses we would have that are not included right now and what we already pay. So that's another revenue source that's not in here because I don't know exactly how much that's going to be as far as if I need to add an expenditure and a revenue. I don't have those numbers yet, so that would help us some in these numbers here. So I have not put that revenue in because I don't know what it's going to be.
Madam Chair,
Yeah, yes, Ms. Hurd.
we don't have a date on when that's going to be resolved yet with the county, do we?
Well, we know that last night when they discussed it, the decision was to wait 60 days. And
Yeah,
I believe there will be a discussion at the joint meeting next
Okay.
week.
So I just wanted everybody to know that number is not in here
Thank you.
while we're
I
talking
didn't know,
budget.
I didn't know if they had mentioned to you after that, the 60-day period, because that,
Pushing it down the road.
they're just adding more because they took it June of 2019.
Well, now, the paperwork shows that nothing was really signed until 2020.
Yeah, I know. But
So-
still, even 2020, this is 2025.
Yes. I understand where that message is going, and I wish I could wave a magic wand, but I don't have that. But anyway, but then more discussions to be had. All right? Where do we go from here, Dr. Tigan?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Mrs. Holloway, if we were to go back and every increase that's been asked for, outside of the things that we've said we're going to keep on this one page, how much of this 472 would that make up if we just baselined everything, the budget and,
You mean increases in individual departments' budgets for,
yes, if we said there's no
Things like
increases
that.
except for maybe operations because of
well,
the maintenance things that we've
well,
got going
that's,
on, and
the bulk-
contracts.
The bulk of that is maintenance, the increase.
I understand.
Yes.
And I know most of our schools are almost
They're level
zero
funded,
increase.
Yes, sir.
So what amount would
I
that?
think we could get there if I took those out to the 472, but
I mean, it really comes down to, we don't increase our budget except for the areas that we have to, or we cut staff. That's-
right. That's
It's the only way you can
basically
make
it.
up 472,000.
That's how I would get there. I'd have to go back and cut the facilities budget by all the contract increases, but then I'd
But
have to find
there's-
that money next year somewhere.
But the
somehow.
increases will still happen.
Yes,
So we
regardless if it's in the budget or not,
That
it's
is,
gonna
that is
happen.
not good budgeting to take from what you know is going up by a certain percentage.
I understand that.
Yeah,
But-
I just want to, I feel better saying it.
No, I
But-
know
But
that.
what you're proposing, we can't really do. We can't really do
Right.
that and pass that budget knowing that
We're short.
we will come up short of
Haven't.
money.
Right.
And we have to be
Well,
able to
we-
pay our bills.
We have put a budget out there that is frugal and down to the last penny. It's what we need to operate on.
I agree.
And so I don't know where to cut other than just to cut everything and say, figure it out.
Yes, sir.
There's I don't see any other option outside of
Positions.
we start eliminating
Yes, sir.
positions.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Ms. Hurd.
You know, realistically, the cost of the 3% raise is about 1.4 million, if I remember in my calculation. So just giving everyone a 3% raise, you've already eaten up.
The
what-
additional from the
Yeah,
county.
I
Yes,
mean,
ma'am.
so that, and I just think we have an agreement with the county, if they're giving their folks, their 200 employees a 3% raise, we must follow suit with our 900 employees on the 3% raise. So based on that, that's very problematic because you have not allowed yourself any area for increases. So that's a problem, but I guess if the county if they were so desperate and did not want to raise taxes, they could just say nobody's getting a raise across the board, county and schools.
That
That
is,
would not go over too well with our
not with
employees.
staff.
And you
and
would
it would
also
be-
lose state revenue.
That's what I'm saying, that
Right.
1.5% for SOQ positions, you're letting the state keep that money by not doing that. So that would be somewhat foolish. So that, I think that's pretty obvious that we're really not asking for that much more in the sense of an organization with 900 employees and the students here, 5 schools. When you think about it, that just rounded up, 1.4 million, it's just for the salary increase. So you really aren't getting, and had the state not come through with that $750,000, we wouldn't even be able to pay our bills, from my calculation, for what we're doing this year. I mean, I don't know what we would do, and also with my calculations, to clear $1 million back to the school, you'd have to eliminate approximately 13 teaching positions if you add in benefits and everything. And that's what makes Powhatan so special, is the smaller classroom numbers to help with the kids that are below grade level. So that's what's very sad. To me, it's very upsetting.
And I do believe that it's those smaller class sizes, one, with recruitment and retention of our staff, but also in the performance of our students. I know we've all read recently about some comparisons of the NAEP studies and how poorly Virginia has performed, but we also know we've shown gains in our mathematics scores year after year as we continue to gain back the learning loss from
Right.
to
And-
2020. We're not there, but we
No.
are moving in that way. We are not stagnant. We are not continuing
And-
to drop. We are moving in a positive direction on both our reading and our mathematics.
And if you look at the alternative education classroom scenario, most school systems, from the research I've done so far, have that option. And we don't have that. So to me, that's a teacher retention tool, that we are saying that the kids that need more hands-on behavioral, that we're going to get behavioral specialists and instructional aides to step in and remove those kids so they can learn how to function. That I mean, that's going to pay off in the long run, because to me, if those kids aren't addressed now and it gets out of hand, I mean, we're just opening the door for possibly more private placements. Of course, you know, social services covers it, but we have to pay the transportation, which that isn't cheap, right? So, I mean, it's being prudent and addressing our two major problems right now in the schools, which is the below grade level performance by keeping the classroom small, and then dealing with the behavioral issues in the class, because unfortunately, some parents don't deal with it at home, that we're having options so that it doesn't fall all on the teacher's lap. So we're really not expanding in any broad sense of what we've been doing. We're just maintaining, which we have really good schools even under the new accreditation process. So that's the marketing that we got to do.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mrs. Ward.
So I just want to be clear in understanding. So the bottom category, we are still in the play
Those are things in the budget, yes, ma'am.
that have already been
There right
accounted
now.
for. Okay.
Yes.
Because my comment in regards to that would, to concur with Mrs. Hurt, is that alternative education program is a must. We need that. We need that. Our teachers need it. Our students need it. We're sitting here talking about learning loss. If you have 18 students in the classroom and you have 3 disruptive, 2, even 1 disruptive, those other students are not having the opportunity to learn. So that particular solution is going to benefit, everybody. The teachers, the children that want to learn, that are sitting in their class, in their seats, and then the students that don't want to learn and they're acting out, it's going to benefit them as well, because the program is going to be directed to them to help them learn what's appropriate behavior and what's acceptable. And the parents will have to bear that responsibility as well. I cannot emphasize enough that we need the parents to be, a participant of that. One of the other thoughts that I have in regards to saving money is, I know that we had in our budget $400,000 allocated for legal fees, and I am not in favor of that. I feel that we should definitely, as a board, consider that again, put out an RFP, look at hiring our own attorney, possibly picking one up for $125,000, $150,000 for the year. That would attend all of our meetings. That would be there for daily legal services, and if we need representation, then they will either A, be able to do that as well, or they could counsel with someone else to do due processes. However, the thought process on that as well is that we have all of this money that's now been allocated to our departments. We have, because where's all of, those legal fees are being spent by our sped ed department, the majority of them, probably 98%, 95 maybe, somewhere. Okay, so we have an amazing director of our special ed department. She has an assistant. We have an amazing student services department now. If we do everything that we should be doing, we shouldn't have children that need to go and get a student advocate and take us to court, because we should be doing what we need to be doing. So there's $400,000 if you wanted to, again, put out an RFP, have our own attorney. I've spoken to several board members myself, and they don't understand why we aren't doing that, and other school boards in other counties are doing that as well. So that's a good, even if you knocked it down to 150,000, that's a huge savings that we can do and justify that we're doing our due diligence to keep our expenses down.
Madam Chair,
Ms. Hurd?
I concur. I mean, in talking to people in the community and board of supervisors, me one-on-one with them, it always comes up, is why are our legal costs so high? And I think maybe we should make a good faith effort into looking to see if there's any way, or some steps we can take to cut those in half possibly. And, that's, before I start talking about alternative education, that's always the first thing, like, well, what are you gonna do about that 400 and some thousand dollars? So I'm sure that will come up next week. I do apologize that I'll be out of the country and won't be at that meeting next week. But that definitely comes up, and people are very concerned.
Well,
Dr. Taylor?
do you have something you want to say? I'll be happy to interject.
Go ahead.
We base our budget planning, Mrs. Hurt, you know this, and Mrs. Ford, off of previous years, right? So we know what we've spent over the last few years, we track that, and so you use that to project to the next year. So to say if we do this, this, and this, and this, if these things all work out, then we should have this end result, that's a lot of ifs. We don't know anything solid there, but what we do know is what we've had to spend because of legal challenges and all the things that have happened. So that's why that number is what it is. I've said it over and over again. I don't believe retaining our own lawyer to do everything that we need to do is the best thing. St. Anderson has all the expertise, and they're not nickeling and diming us to death. They're not creating work for themselves to live large off our tax dollars. We have legal challenges that we are doing the best we can to work through, and those are getting better. And little by little, the budget will come down. But to say, let's just cut it and go to 150, that'd be like just cut everything and just like hope, what I said earlier, if we went down and just said no increases whatsoever, that would not work because we know everything's going to be more. We know electric's going to be more. We know all the other services that we have are going to be more. So we have to plan for what we've seen in the past as far as expenses and then project to the future. And our legal fees are what they are. We would be very foolish to change them because we just don't know what would be out there. And we'd be robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Madam Chair. So to rebuttal on that, Dr. Taylor, I appreciate that. It would be, if you look back, I believe it was in 2019, maybe, 2019, 2020, our legal fees were only $35,000. So, and currently, these legal fees have been outrageous due to, I believe, only possibly 3 students. So and one of those students is no longer with us. So now we're down to just a couple of students, right? Dr. Tigan?
Say that again.
A couple of those students, we are only down to a couple of students in regards to litigation.
Yes, quite honestly, we have how many students, Dr. Prince, that are students with disabilities? Over 600 students with disabilities, and the legal bills are from less than a handful of students and their
Right.
families. So
Correct.
it is not a systemic issue. So it's not, to me, it's not a staff issue. It's not a, I'll leave it at that.
Right, and I completely agree with that. It's not systemic, so if we can, again, in our departments that we're already funding, amazing employees that are working in those departments to do all that we can to satisfy the needs of those parents, then we wouldn't go into litigation. And again, if trying to be fiscally responsible and using common sense, we're hearing common sense economics. Common sense economics would be that we would have our own school board attorney and that it would be available whenever we needed them. So I don't see any harm in trying to, trying to address that. And especially if we could save an extra $250,000.
To go back to the statement that was made earlier that certain supervisors and certain members of the public are asking questions about our legal fees. In all honesty and with great gentleness, those individuals just simply don't know what we know. They're not sitting in the meetings that we're sitting in. They're not sitting in consultations and hearings that our staff are. So for them from the outside to project on us, your legal fees need to be X, they don't have a clue what they're talking about. Let's just be honest about that. We do. We're doing the best we can. We're frugal. We're good stewards of what we've been given, and we use it wisely. I had another thought, and it was really good, and it will come back to me.
Okay. Well, we have investigated having a school board attorney, and the cost was ridiculous. We have, I've talked to other attorneys, and I said, well, our board is concerned about the fees we're paying. And, well, what are your fees? And I would tell him the number, and he said, that's no fee. That is nothing when you're dealing with what you're dealing with. So you may say and try to throw it off that it's Sands Anderson that is the problem and the issue. But the problem and the issue is what we have to deal with. We have no choice. When there is a due process filed, we have to prepare for it. That costs money. It doesn't matter who your attorney is. You're going to put up the money to pay for the process. Your staff is going to prepare to present in a due process hearing. And they don't do it by themselves, they do it with an attorney. Isn't that right? You don't go to court without an attorney. I'm not sending our people, saying I'm going to send our people to court without an attorney. We need good representation. Sands Anderson is the special ed attorneys in our area. And anyone that wants to walk away from that is foolish. Knowing what we know and all the components of what we know and how we get ourselves and how we have been put in, not get ourselves, but how we get put in this situation was not of our doing. We didn't invite this
I'm going
advocate.
to stop you right there.
Well, no, ma'am, you're not going to
I am,
interrupt me.
because I'm tired
I know you're
of
not.
accusing like it's my fault.
Oh, no.
That
Oh,
has
no.
gone on for years, and that is not your job.
That-
as the
Excuse
chair.
me, and your job is not to interrupt, but your job is to maintain control of your verbiage and the manner in which you speak at these board meetings. So you give the other members of this board an opportunity to do the same. It's a funny thing that people come up and ask you about those bills. I've not been asked about them. Dr. Taylor, have you been asked about them?
No, ma'am.
So I just wonder
I have.
why it's always a conversation that you and Mrs. Ward have, only with you two. I'd be glad to sit down and talk to anyone and give them my perspective on all of this. Give me a call. I don't have a problem with it. And all I can say is, if the shoe fits, wear it, Mrs. Hurt, and if it doesn't, leave it alone.
Well, can I?
Don't even scream at me about what I think and what I want to say, because I will think and I will say what I want to.
Well, what I was trying to point
No,
out.
no, you're still interrupting, and I haven't called on you to speak yet. So you just hold on a minute, because I may not be finished. Because we don't ask to go to court. We don't, but we must prepare. And we are going to keep, we've already discussed this thing about changing attorneys, and you were defeated in that request. So the continued request and stirring up in the community that there is something that we truly could do about these fees, we have to go to court and defend ourselves. And I also want to plug in that we have not been found guilty or in error of our actions in any of our proceedings that we have participated
No
in.
one has said we have.
And you're still interrupting, and I haven't called on you to speak yet. So it's important that the community understand that there are things that we know that they don't know, just like Dr. Taylor said. And there are things that we cannot discuss because it has to do with our families and our students. We are doing the best we can do. And why there is more conversation about it other than that, I just do not know. Because we are bound by the laws of Virginia. We have to abide by them. It would be easy to really sit down and have a conversation and tell everybody everything, but we can't do that. We have to protect our school system, our parents, and our students, and their rights to do what they do. But we have to protect ourselves. Now, Mrs. Hurt, if you'd like to speak.
Okay, the point is this, when you look at the budget, which is a legitimate number question, not referring to any cases, in '23, we spent $158,000 on legal services. In '24, 548 plus thousand, I'm just rounding to the whole thousand. So far this year, we've spent $333,679. So what I have been asked, which is a legitimate question, that they know that the teacher case has been settled, that was public knowledge, you can go find it. We're basically down to one situation that we're dealing with. Why are we going up to $415,000? That is a legitimate question for anyone looking at someone's budget. We do not have but one situation really pending now. So that is what I've been asked on a number, and that is a legitimate question to ask, which is, no one is.
And the legitimate answer would be, we have looked at what we have spent in the last several years, and it's not the same as it was last year. It is reduced.
It is, no, it's increased.
Well, I thought it was reduced. You said 500 and some thousand,
No, I said.
and now we have only,
No,
we're only projecting
25
4.
revised right now is $333,679. At least that's what's in my budget book. And we're proposing $415,000. To me, I agree with Mrs. Ward, we have a great staff. I don't know if we need all this extra legal money because I don't think there's going to be issues. I have confidence that we've got a handle on this and we're not going to be faced with a bunch of problems. They're doing an awesome job. They're in the schools. I think I commend Dr. Prince for getting parents involved to be an advocate. I think that's a fabulous idea. And, you know, so that is what I've been asked when people look at this, which is public knowledge, on the numbers. Am I correct in what I'm seeing in my budget book?
The revised budget as of right now is $348,000.
Okay, 348, excuse me.
It's probably changed some just because as we pay bills, I sometimes have to
Right.
shift money around. We've revised the budget to be 348, almost 349. We have spent 310,000, and we're only in February, so the
Right,
bills
but
have only
we
been
ha-
paid through January.
We had some big cases, though,
Right.
that were big from
So I've done a
in the fall.
guesstimate on what I think we will need. I don't know if it's
Right.
enough or not.
But what I'm saying right now, we're down to like one case.
So what is your guesstimate?
I have no way to know. I have no
Nobody
way to know.
does.
Okay, so I thought you said
I
you
mean,
had
I
a
put I
guesstimate.
put extra in there because I knew we would still have some, but I don't know if it's enough. It may be too much, but I'm sure we will spend that 38,000 before the end of the year. Because like I said, we probably just paid the January bills, are getting ready to.
Right.
Because we're a month behind.
Okay.
Madam Chair, may I
Yes, sir.
answer Mr. Surt's question? I don't think any of us have ever doubted our staff. We all believe in our staff. We know they're working hard, doing well. But we have a quote-unquote self-proclaimed agitator who's still out there. So to make the argument that we're doing well, I don't think the legal fees will be as much next year, we have nothing to base that on. Because we know, as I said earlier, we base budgets on previous year's expenses. We know the reason we've spent, and again, as Mrs. Smith said, we can't have these conversations in complete clarity or transparency. But the one person that has brought all the challenges to us has created this firestorm, and there's no reason to think that this person will not continue to do that. So thus the reason and the need for a large number in that line item. Otherwise, we would be foolish because we're gonna, if we put 150 there and November of next year, we have an expense of 275, we got to go to another line item and pull that money from. So are we pulling it from computers from our students? Are we pulling that from phone or internet service? I mean, where are we pulling that extra couple $100,000?
Can I respond to
Sure.
you? All the school systems in Central Virginia have been dealing with this advocate and other advocates. You can't project with your legal services. Someone could trip down the steps out there and sue us.
But you just
I
said
said
you
cut
to
it.
project
I know,
150
but I'm
because we were going to
saying
do
right
better.
now, I'm saying right now that we know of only one case that we're dealing with.
Current case, but it doesn't mean there's not going to be more.
Why are we assuming there's going to be more?
Because I've been on this board now in my 4th year, and I've seen
But those
the same
cases
problem.
But those cases have been going on for multiple years.
Not all of them.
Yeah.
It started and it expanded to others, and there's no reason in my mind
Okay.
for me not to think that
Well,
we're not finished.
I have not been out in the public, like, bringing this up. It has been brought to my attention. And last night, the group that was there, this was one of the first things out of their mouth, okay? Because it's widely known, okay? Not through me or Miss Wade telling anybody anything.
Ms. Wade.
And I'm just saying that. I just answer people's questions about what the money's being spent on, because that is what I've been elected to. And I'm sorry people may not contact you, but today already, I have talked to 4 phone calls of parents and people with issues. I talked to probably on average a dozen parents or constituents a week.
With issues, I'm sorry, legal issues? Or
No, I'm talking about just everything in general. So the people in the public
Budget
know
issues.
that I will listen to them and I will try to get them answers for their questions.
We all talk to people. We're talking about, we're not
I
hearing
know,
about
but
legal
I'm
matters.
saying, on the legal stuff, I get because it's budget season now, it's not ongoing, but it's budget season now, and people don't want us to spend too much money because they don't want their taxes to go up. So they're looking at everything, and this is one very public issue that people have stood at the podium for years questioning us on this. And all I'm saying is I'm trying to be a responsible steward of the money and say we're doing all we can. But you can't just say, oh, we're doing all you can. You need to offer some proof to them that, yes, this is what we've done.
This is going to sound very calloused, maybe even more callous than what I said earlier. I'll back off a little bit. They just don't know what they're talking about. For us to say, for them or for you or for anyone else to say, we're not being responsible with our money is just
Oh, I'm not
an
saying
irresponsible
that.
statement.
I'm saying they're asking about it. and
The proof, you asked for proof, or you're saying they're wanting proof. The proof is every challenge that we've had legally over the last several years from this certain individual, the school system has been proven to be in the right. That's the proof. So if we were on the other side of everything, you would have so much more expense. So much more expense going out the doors instead of legal fees.
I'm just saying, I am optimistic and realistic in forming a budget. I'm a data person. I don't see data in front of me right now to be concerned that we need to budget a huge amount for legal, because it's just not there.
I think it's better to budget than it is not to have it in your budget when you need it.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
In regards to a statement that you made earlier, that we discussed this before, I know I did bring that up last year during budget time as well, maybe slightly prior to that, in regards to putting out an RFP for us to have our own county school board attorney, where I think that we would get more bang for our buck. So I don't feel it's inappropriate for me to mention it again here at budget, especially when we're trying to save money. And again, knowing that we have a team that is now very consistent for about a year. Dr. Prince has got an assistant working with her and our student services that I have been aware of these cases. And if you want to apply common sense, a lot of this common sense, we shouldn't have gone to court, period. And I know that our new team that we have will do all that they can not to allow us to go to court. And when I look at the bills myself from Sands Anderson, and I see that they're going to a due process number 8, number 9, number 10, number 11, it's the same material. They're just tweaking a few words, which is one of the other reasons we're so annoyed with this particular advocate, because all she does is just tweak a few letters and words to get it back in front of the judge again. So taking 3 and sometimes 4 attorneys for the same due process, to me, is not responsible. So when it comes to trying to save money, this is an easy fix, an easier comprehension for me, that we just solve it, we hire our own attorney. I literally went to dinner with 2 attorney friends of mine, husband and wife, on Saturday, and I expressed to them what they think about hiring attorneys. And I was told, quote unquote, for $150,000, I could get a darn tootin' excellent attorney that would be available to us. So, I mean, again, over
I
here
got
at the
news
county,
for you. They charge by every 15 minutes.
not if you hire them and retain them
They charge you every
full-time.
15 minutes.
Not if you
Those
hire and
kind of
retain them
attorneys.
full-time.
You may pay the base figure of $150,000, but you're going to pay them every time they sit down to work for you.
Actually, I wasn't
every
finished, Mrs.
15
Smith, I
I'm
wasn't
sorry.
finished.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
Thank you. Actually, no. When you retain someone, they are your employee, so that they are being there for you. And we can set our own contract. They could be there for us between 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. at night, 6 days a week. We can set our own contract. I'm just saying it's another way to think outside the box, how we can help save money for our constituents here in the county, and hopefully not wind up in court, because we know we've got a great new team now that's been working together for a year to do what we need to do to stay out of court.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
We're beating a dead horse here.
Yes,
Mrs.
we are.
Ward,
No,
it sounded like what you just said, and we've said it multiple times tonight, it sounds like a backhanded compliment to our staff. We have a good team in place now. Dr. Prince has an assistant. You're intending it perhaps to be a compliment, but it comes across to me as a backhanded, like, we weren't really that good, and we were making all these grand mistakes. Again, I'll just reiterate, we've been in litigation. Litigation has been in our favor because we did the things that are right. We have good representation. All the more reason to continue to have that representation, prepare for the worst, hope for the best, and move forward. I don't see that we can cut this line.
No.
It's a non-negotiable for me.
And even if we cut it, cut the 400,000, every dime out of it, it wouldn't get us to where we need to, the things we need to cut at 1.66 million.
Madam Chair, but it would show good faith to the Board of Supervisors and to our constituents that we are trying to be
You know,
fiscally responsible.
Okay. The Board of Supervisors, bless their heart, but they do not know what we deal with in a school system and in school law, because it is different. It is different in regards to our staff and how we deal with our parents. It's different. And if you aren't an expert in school law, you're wasting your money. You're pouring your water on gravel instead of on a plant, so to speak. So they don't know what they don't know, and they're making comments, and maybe it makes them feel good. I don't know why they're making them, so I shouldn't go down that road. But I will say this, they need to know more before they start criticizing us on and making and pinpointing that particular category and area as to where we need to cut our budget.
Well, I would add to that, that we ought to be the biggest cheerleaders to those supervisors. I know every time I have a conversation, and two talk to me regularly that I'm close to, and I always say very same thing that I just said here, that you just don't know, you don't understand. We have these legal fees. We don't want them. We're doing everything that we can to reduce them. But to reduce them, you have to go to court. It's because you've been drawn in. So you just need to trust us. I mean, that's really what it is. This is our responsibility. We've been elected to lead this school system, and so we answer for it. It's on us. It's not on them. So I would say that you as board members ought to be cheerleading what we're doing instead of tearing down what we're doing or casting doubt on what we're doing as if there could be some improprieties somewhere. That's not the case at all.
Madam Chair, I would never cast doubt on anything we did, but I want to point out to something that this board may not be aware of. There are school systems that their money is allocated them by line item. And do you know, Dr. Tigan, how many school systems are like that in Virginia? It's a fair number.
It's roughly 50%,
Yeah,
is
so,
my knowledge.
so that's what you got to be careful of, because the Board of Supervisors are definitely considering that. And that means you don't get allocated your whole lump sum. They look at your budget and they allocate it line by line by line, is my understanding. Is that correct?
It would be appropriation category, not really line by line, but appropriation, instruction,
Right, but I mean,
transportation.
they really get into the weeds a
yes, ma'am.
lot with your money. And so I think it's prudent to try to answer their questions. And no one said that anybody's accused us
We
of
don't
not
do it now.
being, what now? Is that not?
But go ahead, no, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, I just want to have a relationship with the Board of Supervisors that they never feel the need to go that route, because that's going to make our life a lot more difficult. That's my opinion.
That's the whole point I just had there.
No,
Let's sell what we're doing here to the supervisors. That's what I do. They come and ask those questions. I
But-
had those
when-
conversations this week. And I'm saying to them what I'm saying to you guys sitting here at this table.
my point is that I want to answer their question. I don't come to them with the question, they come to me with a question. And my answer is going to be, let's pull out the budget book and let's look at the numbers. I look at the numbers. That's the thing. But like I said, my issue and my whole strategy, when I'm talking to the Board of Supervisors, I build positive, want it to be confident, that really we are running an excellent school system. Even on the new accreditation program, we have outstanding ratings, and that we're being very responsible with the money so they don't come to feel the need to appropriate that way, because I think that is a headache and a bigger challenge for us, and we don't want to get down that road. That's just from what you may know more than I do about it, because honestly, I didn't realize till just recently that could be an option. And that was brought up to me by some Board of Supervisor members, that was an option they could choose. I don't know why that they have a right to be able to do that, but apparently it's in code that they can. So, yeah.
Well,
Well, I would like to make one other comment. The Board of Supervisors needs to support the budget of this school system. We are not frivolous. We are not wasting money. We aren't asking for our wishes and our hopes and our dreams. We are asking for basic needs to further the education of the students in this community. Now, if they want to do away with support in the schools, then I guess they make the plan that they're going to turn our Powhatan County into a geriatric county and do away with schools. Because you either support it, plan to make adaptations to your programs, to enhance. Education cannot be static. It has to adapt. You have to learn and go at things in different approaches. And it's like the Board of Supervisors thinks that we have to put a number out there for something and not consider inflation or any of those things. Well, we're considering the inflation that impacts the numbers. You can't run your buses on the same amount of diesel fuel you did 2 years ago. I mean, and the needs that we have put out here in this budget are not frivolous, they're not wishes and wants and hopes and dreams, because they're the things that we feel as a board that we are bringing to them as needs to further advance our education here in Powhatan. And that is the job that we are elected to do as well. And I think we do a pretty good job of it. Dr. Tigan and her team work tirelessly to answer all of our questions, whether we have them. And sometimes I feel sorry for them because we ask so many. Because I know, and that's just accumulating, taking a look at the questions that I ask. Because I just bombarded you with a bunch of questions, staff, and I know that. But in order to support something, I feel like I have to know what I have to know. And that's what we were elected to do.
Madam Chair.
And so that's what I think we need to do. And they need to do as well. Now, wait a minute, Dr. Tigan was trying to speak, and I wouldn't let her. So, your turn.
The only thing I was going to say is just, you know, if there's lack of trust with the Board of Supervisors on where we spend our money and what we're doing, I don't think we've had as much transparency. I think that is a constant goal of Mrs. Holloway's, and I support it, but it definitely is deep in her soul that everything is transparent. We are showing where every dollar goes. If we move a dollar from one place to another, it is being reflected in where the money was spent. And so I want to applaud her for the transparency she's brought to our finances here, that anyone, it's an open book. It truly is, so thank you.
All right.
And Madam
Wait a
Chair-
minute, Ms. Ward.
Basically, just to, again, my conversations that I've had with Board of Supervisors and also constituents in the county, and just a year and a half ago, being a resident myself and not representing the schools, I'm trying to address our legal services with common sense. And the common sense is, last year, unfortunately, we lost our county attorney due to his demise. Within several weeks, they interviewed and hired a full-time attorney for a very reasonable rate that they acquired that attorney to be on board and be an employee and to be at their beck and call for any needs and services. So to me, a common sense approach would be that we would, again, ourselves, have our own county attorney, say for $150,000, and that would include a certain amount of hours per month or a certain amount of time going to court, whatever the case is. Hopefully all that court is winding down, and that we would be fiscally responsible. Because who knows, maybe in 5 years we wouldn't even need a county attorney. Hopefully, because again, our team is doing a great job. And Dr. Taylor, as far as a backhanded comment, that went way over my head.
Ms. Ward, it's our time.
Pardon?
Time. I have to cut you off.
Okay, well,
It's 6:01, and we have to be do
Okay,
our.
please let me finish my comment. That would be great. So, Dr. Taylor, it did not mean to come across as a backhanded comment, of course, at all. It's just that we have a new team that we have witnessed, I have witnessed over the last year, working smoothly together. So I know that they are doing all that they can to prevent any future happenings. So,
And I would like
just
to
wanted to
make one
clarify that.
No, it's 6 o'clock. It is 6:01, and we are behind schedule. You may have a chance to make some more comments before the evening is over, I am sure of
We
it.
have to start-
But we have to do the public hearing.
when we
at
advertise.
At this point in time. So hold those thoughts. We'll come back and collect them and gather them up. All right. We will now move into our public comment period, which is also our public hearing. There's no work, okay. But that was the workshop.
Yes.
But we have to close out that and then come back and, all right, so this workshop is adjourned. My,
Do you?
no, I don't need a the February 25th, 2025 School Board Public Hearing, Budget Public Hearing to order. Let the record reflect that 4 board members are present. Mrs. Wade is not here with us, but our clerk and our superintendent are with us. And we stand, please, for the pledge. And Dr. Taylor, if you have identification, please. I'll lead the pledge. Hold on. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you would, remain standing as we pray. Father, we thank you this evening for the place you've given us to live. We thank you for many blessings that we have. We thank you for our wonderful school system. We thank you that you are the God who gives us all that we enjoy. And so tonight, as we discuss the budget for the next upcoming year, we pray that you will give us wisdom and discernment, help us to be able to answer the questions that are being asked of us and to think through the solutions needed to answer questions that are out there and needs that are out there. And with all of that, Lord, we're grateful to know that you are the one who provides it all. So we thank you for that in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. All right. I need a motion to approve the agenda.
Madam Chair, I'll make the motion to approve the agenda.
And a second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. All right. This is our public hearing on the 2026 proposed budget, and we will have updates. You're up again.
Wearing the right color for tonight, right?
This is just a quick update. It's all the same information you've been provided on the previous 2 presentations. We just wanted to have a short presentation for anybody from the public who was here. Budget highlights. In this budget, we have, like you know, we have included a 3% salary increase for the staff based on what the guidance from the county was. There will be no increase for health insurance next year. Hallelujah. PCPS has included a new alternative ed program for K through 12. This includes 3 teachers, 5 instructional assistants, and 2 behavioral specialists. We have included a reading specialist position, which will be required by the SOQ. And for anybody who doesn't know what SOQ is, that's standards of quality set by the state. PCPS has included a student service program manager, a benefits specialist, an additional technology position, 1.8 additional division-wide counselors, and a clinic assistant for the high school. We've also included some pay increases for school administrators who did not receive the recommended salary increase proposed in the salary study last year due to the cap being set to stay within budget. We have included an additional pay increase for instructional specialists who, when breaking down the recommended salary study increase, are making less than a 12-month teacher. Several employee contract changes are included, as well as increases in services such as custodial, legal, trash collection, grounds maintenance are also included. So the requested county transfer, original request increase was $4,058,805, and this is what the budget looked like at that time, with a $33,166,365 would be the county transfer for fiscal year 26. After meeting with the county finance staff, the county transfer has been revised to an increase of $1,000,005 rather than the $4,058,058. Leaves our revenue short by $2,558,805. So the new transfer would be $30,607,560. This slide shows the shortage between what we have in there for expenditures currently is $66,753,000. That's total for all funds. Operating funds, $63,525,753. When you compare that revenue, the revenue on the previous screen for the operating fund is $60,966,948. We're short $2.5 million, almost $2.6 million. These are the things we have put in the budget that are currently not funded with the decrease in the county transfer. Those are all the things we talked about earlier, the positions, contract changes, program improvement needs, which include the cybersecurity infrastructure upgrades that we've spoken about. These are potential amendments. We know this is most likely going to happen. It has made it through the House and Senate approval. Additional funding to support basic aid, 603-214. Additional funding to support special ed add-on, $139,581. So the potential change for the operating fund will be $742,795. There's a little bit for school food service as well. So revenue shortfall after these potential amendments, like I said, we're short $2,558,805. With the additional amendments from the state, that gives us another $742,795, which leaves us short $1,008,000. Once we know if these amendments remain in the governor's final amendments, Cabinet will work with school board to determine what to cut from the fiscal year 26 proposed annual plan. And I'll take any questions.
Any questions? No questions?
None for me at this time.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Mrs. Holloway, I'm a little confused. In our workshop just a few minutes ago, you were saying we needed to cut 1.685. This is showing 1.816.
That's because I still have the guidance counselors in that number.
In this number.
They're coming out in the other, on that one sheet
Okay.
page, yes, sir.
I know you had a good answer for it.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I'm looking at
this
the
is
number.
Change every day.
This is the most
That's the
accurate.
most updated.
This is
Yes,
the most
ma'am.
accurate.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's 1.685.
Yes,
606, 605.
yes.
Want that. All right. Do we have anyone here for public comment? Ms. Eggleston? No. All right. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to ask a question? No. All right. I guess we move on to comments by the board. Ms. Ward, you want to start?
Thank you.
Since I cut you off.
Thank you. Basically, just to wrap this up with the budget, I know that we're still short by quite a bit of money, and if we're going to start cutting things, I would much rather prefer to cut starting at our legal budget, not anticipating hopefully to spend all of that $400,000, again, by thinking outside the box. I have no allegiance to Sands Anderson at all. I have allegiance to the community and to the people that put me in office, and I'm trying to be fiscally responsible with their funds. And before we have to look at starting to maybe cut positions of teachers so that we can meet these budget guidelines, I would much rather cut our legal fees first before we have to consider cutting teachers or something else that may be necessary. I think that's best for our community. I mean, some of those if we have to cut teachers' positions, they may be residents of our community. Whereas if, again, I feel like if we can just keep the legal costs down, hire an attorney, have common sense with it, fiscally responsible with our legal fees, that could be easily $200,000 there, which could be probably, 2.5 teaching positions, maybe even 3, if we had to cut teachers. So, again, I don't understand why there's so much resistance to even want to consider having other representation. Again, there's no allegiance on my part. Maybe it's because the past board even hired Sands Anderson, and they don't personally want to feel like they made a wrong decision. I don't think anybody would look at it that way. I know I certainly wouldn't. It would just be that times have changed and situation has changed. So again, I think everyone has done a great job with the budget and all their departments, and we just need to really crunch our numbers and try and figure out what we're going to have to decrease. And again, I guess when you look at a very quick picture snapshot, the easiest thing to do through some discussion would be to decrease teachers and increase pupil numbers in the classroom. And if we do that, again, I would want to focus just on our kindergarten, our elementary grades, and keep those at lower classroom rates. But where the children are having to be more independent, say middle school years and even high school, if we have to grow those class sizes to say 22, 23, because I believe the state allows us to go up to 25, where those students should be self-independent anyways. A lot of those students are taking AP classes. So we could expand those classes there and maybe not lose as many teachers either. So those are just some ideas just to throw out that we can, discuss and consider and hopefully come up with the money and budget needs that we have. And that is all that I have.
Dr. Taylor.
Is this a time for us to debate and try to come up with solutions, or just to make a comment?
I don't know. What do you feel like you want to do? It says comments by the board. If you want to continue the discussion and.
I do not want to be chased into or drug into the legal debate again.
Okay.
I've said my piece.
Thank you.
I just didn't know if we were wanting to try to figure out a solution tonight, or if that's something we're going to ask our staff to do. Obviously, you do that every year. You've already done it. You've already made some adjustments and revised, pulling some stuff out and gave us those numbers. So I'm for that. If we don't need to make suggestions tonight and just let them bring stuff back to us, that's good. Maybe that's next steps. But I would just say that as far as my comments, I understand that the board of supervisors and we have too few dollars chasing too many needs. I think that's a good way to say it. And I understand that. The county has its own set of needs and expenses, we as well. I will say that what we have proposed is the legit need that we have as a school division to run our division effectively, responsibly, efficiently. And so I would challenge our Board of Supervisors to do what they can to accommodate the budget that we've presented. And we can figure out some wiggle room, but to try to make up even the 472 that we're short, for us to do that hinders us greatly. But to cut it by the 873, taking out some major things that we know and believe are necessary, that's too much as well. So I would ask that next week when we have a joint board meeting that we can come to a good understanding where they see our side and want to accommodate with some minor adjustments. But to say 2.5 million, you're 2.5 million too strong is, I don't see how that's realistic. Again, I understand their perspective as well. They got too few dollars chasing too many needs, but I don't see how we can cut this without doing the really dirty stuff, and that is eliminating positions. That's my comments.
Mrs. Hurd?
The schools are not an island. We are a member of the community, and we have to, as an elected official, we have to be responsible to understanding what the community is facing, what the Board of Supervisors currently are facing. And I understand with their current budget and with the tax increase, they're not able to fill anything, basically, other than the 3% raise. And, you know, we are one community, and as Dr. Taylor said, our big problem in Powhatan County is the lack of commercial dollars. We're faced with 93% of our revenue comes off the backs of the homeowners. And we don't have the commercial support that other counties have. And the Board of Supervisors, they're trying to hold the tax rate increase to a minimum because the public is screaming loudly they don't want a tax increase. Everyone's job is to educate people why. Why do we need, for county needs and school needs, why do we need this money? Because it equates to having to increase their taxes to meet those needs. Unfortunately for us, there was quite a large CIP that popped up in late 2023. And that put a burden on the financial needs of the county. They are trying to be as supportive, the Board of Supervisors, of the really critical needs that our school infrastructure, building, so forth needs. Yes, our wonderful financial director is extremely transparent. Dr. Tigan's extremely transparent. A fact in organizations, when you become very transparent, it results in a lot of questions. When you give people numbers and data, they're not dumb. They look at the numbers and data and they have questions. And we have to answer those questions even if they're not comfortable or we really want to. I think before we try to debate on what should be cut or what we're going to do, you're going to have to wait and see the final number from the Board of Supervisors. And I hate that this seems like to drag on forever. And maybe the process is better to just have them say, hey, this is what we can realistically give you. And, you know, when you're looking at tax rates and how much you borrow, Davenport is who the county uses. These are financial experts, and they know what a county's tax rate has to be. They know how much you can borrow before you put your municipality in jeopardy of major financial issues, which would not serve us well, for sure. We just are going to have to wait to see what the Board of Supervisors feels that they can provide to the schools. And I don't doubt that they don't care about the schools, but I don't doubt they don't care about firefighters, the sheriff's department, their own 200 employees in the administrative building, the parks and rec people, the list goes on. So it's a shame we don't have a money tree growing out in front of the Landmark Center here, but we don't. And the funds for Powhatan County are extremely limited. And we're foolish to think that we are going to get the lion's share. We have to be prepared for what they feel comfortable. And the way to have them better engaged with us is to continue, as Mrs. Hollerith has done and Dr. Tigan, being totally transparent, showing all the numbers we have here. You know, there have been questions that this didn't even come up tonight, that we have a reduction of 200 students. I've been asked this repeatedly. And why is that not saving us money? Because our average ADM is less because of that. And I've carefully explained, now wait a minute, we got 5 schools, JK through 12th grade, so you're just talking about a few kids here and there in different grade levels, which does not justify, it's not going to, you're not saving a lot of any money on that deal. You're losing money because you don't have them in the average daily membership, the ADM. So I think that we have to, because we become transparent, you got to continue to educate the public about what our budget entails, what our needs are, why we need what we need, and we have to be realistic, and we have to be compassionate and understand that the Board of Supervisors has an extremely difficult job to deal with at this time. So if somebody could go out there and get about 15 Chick-fil-A's to move to Powhatan County, we'd be rolling in the dough. Thanks.
All right. Well, it is my opinion that, and I truly believe that the future welfare of this community depends on the quality of education that we provide in our schools, and that we fit the needs, we seek to meet the needs of all of our students. Dr. Tigan and her staff have put together this budget that clearly shows where the money goes. These efforts reflect how they will provide the best possible school program, while also considering school staff and school facilities. I think each board member is always looking to understand and evaluate the educational programs that are brought before us for our division, and that the decisions we make are in the best interest of our constituents and our school district. As I had said earlier, leadership in education cannot be static. It is about continuously learning, adapting, and working together to build something better. When our budget is not funded, the message that is being sent is one of distrust and in our abilities to run our schools all the way around. Plus, they tie our hands and prevent us from meeting the needs of our students, our staff, and our community. And I ask, just like Dr. Taylor, that the Board of Supervisors do their best, make their best effort to help us do the job that we were elected to do, which is provide the best education we can for our community and for our students. Dr. Tigan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it's a lot of good information has been shared this evening. I do think there are things that sometimes we have difficulty sharing with the community to understand some of the things that happen. I would like to at least share that, you know, with the 100 students that we've lost over the last year or two, you know, there were at least 60 of them that were not residents of Powhatan County. And, you know, that speaks volumes to what our teachers and our administrators are doing in their buildings, because kids who live other places, parents are using us as their private schools at our taxpayers' expense. We have worked diligently, and I will say the clerk of the board has been instrumental in making sure that the students going to our schools, their families live in Powhatan and pay Powhatan taxes. So, you know, if anything, I would say some of our decrease in student numbers have actually probably been an increase in money to our county and to our own students here. You know, I think there's a lot of things that we try not to put out our dirty laundry per se as a county or as for our families or anything that's happening. But we really do, you know, as a resident myself of Powhatan, you know, I know the conservative nature. I know that we all want our taxes to be as low as possible, but I know we don't want our property values to dip because we're not willing to invest in the things as not just schools, but county as well. There, you know, you mentioned firefighters. I know that's something I hear about, that, you know, our residents want that. I think that when we hear the loudest voices, I was in a meeting today where, you know, the indication was that sometimes the loudest voices are not necessarily the majority, and we need to remember that. They are just what they are, the loudest voices. And so I, encourage people to share with their Board of Supervisors members, with their school board members, as to what it is you want if you're a taxpayer here in Powhatan. And if the county services and schools aren't important, then you can say that. If they are important, then you can't say you don't want anything to change, because we're not going to be able to improve either one without additional funding. And so that's just a reality of it. And by the county and schools being asked to continue to do more on less, with less money even to address inflation, and asking our employees to do more without, compensation that is keeping up with inflation, everyone's falling behind. We realize that. But at some point, we've got to make decisions about what's important. And so, the soft voices need to be heard as well. The ones that are cheering in the background but don't want to say anything. You don't have to speak publicly, but you can reach out to your elected officials and share what you value in our community here and what you want to see moving forward. With that, I will stop talking.
Madam Chair.
Sorry. As to the direction that we take next, is it to go with, get out the magnifying glass and see where we can cut, make some cuts?
Madam Chair.
I hate to see that it's, that we go towards staff. If it's something that the board needs to look at, some of the things that are on here, what are you willing to give up? What are you willing to take off? And maybe that's a discussion for another night or tonight. That's up to the board.
Madam Chair.
Ms. Hurt.
I think it is not a wise use of staff's time at this time to spend any more time trying to figure out what's going to stay, what's going to be cut, what's going to be in, until you have a better handle from the county on what that number is going to be. Mrs. Hollerith and Dr. Tigan and the cabinet have spent a lot of time on this. I think we need to just hold tight. They know the numbers so well. I'm sure that whatever number you're given, you can whip out. I mean, what can be cut is right now is very limited. And if it did stay at the 1.5, and God forbid Youngkin didn't sign the $750,000 for us, we'd be down to either everybody gets the 3% raise and nothing else goes up, or nobody gets a raise and we do what we can with that 1.4 million. So at this point, I don't see it makes any sense to have staff utilize any more time. They've got enough other functions that they need to be dealing with than to keep running through the budget numbers.
Madam Chair, may I clarify one thing?
Yes, ma'am.
If we cut the 3%, we lose,
1.5 of the 400.
right, we lose more than that. We lose about 50% of the money. Well, you're right. No, it's,
SOQs,
yes, because of SOQs. This is the second year of the biennium. This is what was in the governor's budget, so the 3%. If we don't give staff that 3%, we will lose some of the other funding we are getting to help cover that from the state. So just wanted to be clear.
No, it's a catch-22.
It is.
So anyone else have a next step?
Madam Chair, I would agree with Mrs. Hurt that we kind of just push pause and go into our joint meeting with the sheet that's in front of us and at least try to get them to match the 472 so they don't have to cut anything else. And preferably be able to fund all the things that are above it, if I'm reading the page right. Am I correct?
That's with all of those cut.
Yes, I'm saying,
It's just this. It's just that.
with all those cut, we still need to make up 472. We've already figured that out. So I say we go into the joint meeting saying, here's the best we can do. We're still 472,000 short, so we're gonna at least ask you to meet that need. But we really would need the 1.685. And then we figure it out, we negotiate. The art of the deal, right? Isn't that the rage right now? We make a deal.
Let's make a deal. Yes, let's make a deal. Let's see, who is, what suggestions they might have for us. Mrs. Ward. Every time I look this way, I want to say Wade, and every time I look this way, I want to say Ward. So, Mrs. Ward.
I would agree. I think we should just focus on our meeting, our joint meeting next week. Again, we can all spend our own time trying to look at some things, and we can sharpen our pencil a little more per category. However, just put everything on pause, wait to see what the Board of Supervisors, what their ultimate decision is, and then we have to come back to the drawing table to see if all of our needs have been met financially, and if not, then we need to start looking at making cuts.
All right. I guess we're ready to tap the hammer. This meeting is adjourned, 6:34.